Uh, my audio was turned off, so my wonderful intro, uh, it's gone. We missed it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next astounding and amazing, thrilling and edifying episode of The Reading Cow from Another World uh, on a Planet Reading Bedtime Stories show thing that this is. Today we continue the great history of the planet Earth and the world and what happened. So if there's anybody that is not familiar with the story, we're gonna learn, and it's really gonna be amazing, folks. So here we go. Today, you remember last time we were on all the animals were getting on the ark because God was going to destroy the earth with a flood, and now the flood is coming. The flood. The assembling of the animals in the ark was but the smaller part of the task imposed upon Noah. His chief difficulty was to provide food for a year and accommodations for them. Long afterward, Shem, the son of Noah, related to Eliezer, the servant of Abraham. You know what? I'm getting sick of these robocalls. Robocalls. Okay. His chief difficulty was to provide food for a year and accommodations for them. Long afterward, Shem, the son of Noah, related to Eliezer, the servant of Abraham, the tale of their experiences with the animals in the ark. This is what he said. We had sore troubles in the ark. The day animals had to be fed by day, and the night animals by night. My father knew not what food to give to the little Zikta. Once he cut a pomegranate in half, and a worm dropped out of the fruit and was devoured by the Zikta thing. Thenceforth my father would knead bran and let it stand until it bred worms, which were fed to the animal. The lion suffered with a fever all the time, and therefore he did not annoy the others, because he did not relish dry food. The animal Urshana my father found sleeping in a corner of the vessel, and he asked him whether he needed nothing to eat. He answered and said, I saw thou wast very busy, and I did not wish to add to thy cares. Whereupon my father said, May it be the will of the Lord to keep thee alive forever. And the blessing was realized. The difficulties were increased when the flood began to toss the ark from side to side. All inside of it were shaken up like lentils in a pot. The lions began to roar, the oxen lowed, the wolves howled, and all the animals gave vent to their agony, each to the sounds it had the power to utter. The autonomous partial object is really taking over here. Uh, Also, Noah and his sons, thinking that death was nigh, broke into tears. Noah prayed to God, O Lord, help us, for we are not able to bear the evil that encompasses us. The billows surge around us. The streams of destruction make us afraid, and death stares us in the face. Oh, hear our prayer. Deliver us. Incline thyself to us, and be gracious unto us. Redeem us, and save us. The flood was produced by a union of the male waters, which are above the firmament, and the female waters issuing from the earth. The upper waters rushed through the space left when God removed two stars out of the constellation Pleiades. Afterward, to put a stop to the flood, God had to transfer two stars from the constellation of the Bear to the constellation of the Pleiades. That is why the Bear runs after the Pleiades. She wants her two children back, but they will be restored to her only in the future world. There were other changes among the celestial spheres during the year of the flood. All the time it lasted, the sun and the moon shed no light, whence Noah was called by his name, the resting one. For in his life the sun and moon rested. The ark was illuminated by a precious stone, cling, the light of which was more brilliant by night than by day, so enabling Noah to distinguish between day and night. That's how they knew. The duration of the flood was a whole year. It began on the 17th day of Heshwan, and the rain continued for 40 days until the 27th of Kislev. The punishment corresponded to the crime of the sinful generation. They had led immoral lives and begotten bastard children whose embryonic state lasts 40 days. From the 27th of Kislev until the 1st of Siwan, a period of 150 days, the water stood at one and the same height, 15 ells above the earth. During that time, all the wicked were destroyed, each one receiving the punishment due to him. Cain was among those that perished, and thus the death of Abel was avenged. So powerful were the waters in working havoc that the corpse of Adam was not spared in its grave. On the 1st of Siwan, the waters began to abate, a quarter of an ell a day. And at the end of 60 days, on the 10th day of Ab, the summits of the mountains showed themselves. But many days before, on the 10th of Tammuz, Noah had sent forth the raven, and a week later the dove, on the first of her three sallies, repeated at intervals of a week. It took from the 1st of Ab until the 1st of Tishri for the waters to subside wholly from the face of the earth. Even then the soil was so miry that the dwellers in the ark had to remain within until the 27th day of Heshwan, completing a full sun year, consisting of 12 moons and 11 days. Wow, that's a lot of poop in there for the animals. Wow, for a year. Noah had experienced difficulty all along in ascertaining the state of the waters. When he desired to dispatch the raven, the bird said, "The Lord, thy master, hates me, and thou dost hate me too. Thy master hates me, for he bade thee take 7 pairs of the clean animals into the ark, and put but 2 pairs of the unclean animals, to which I belong. Thou hatest me, for thou dost not choose as a messenger a bird of one of the kinds of which there are 7 pairs in the ark, but thou sendest me, and my kind there is but 1 pair. Suppose now I should perish by reason of heat or cold. Would not the world be the poorer by a whole species of animals?" Think about it. Or can it be thou hast cast a lustful eye upon my mate, and desirous to rid thyself of me? He could have been thinking that, you know. Whereunto Noah made answer and said, "Wretch! I must live apart from my own wife in the ark. How much less would such thoughts occur in my mind as thou imputest to me?" I hate it when people think they know what I'm thinking as well. The raven's errand. had no success, for when he saw the body of a dead man, he set to work to devour it, and did not execute the orders given to him by Noah. Thereupon the dove was sent out. Toward evening she returned with an olive leaf in her bill, plucked on the Mount of Olives at Jerusalem, the Holy Land, for the Holy Land had not been ravaged by the deluge. As she plucked it, she said to God, O Lord of the world, let my food be as bitter as the olive, but do thou give it to me from thy hand, rather than it should be sweet, and I be delivered into the power of men. The next episode, Noah leaves the ark. Though the earth assumed its old form at the end of the year of punishment, Noah did not abandon the ark until he received the command of God to leave it. He said to himself, as I entered the ark at the bidding of God, so I will leave it only at his bidding. Yet, when God made Noah go out of the ark, he refused because he feared that after he had lived upon the dry land for some time and begotten children, God would bring together another flood. He therefore would not leave the ark until God swore he would never visit the earth with a flood again. When he stepped out from the ark into the open, he began to weep bitterly at the sight of the enormous ravages wrought by the flood. And he said to God, O Lord of the world, thou art called the merciful, and thou shouldst have had mercy upon thy creatures. How about it? God answered and said, O thou foolish shepherd, now thou speakest to me. Thou didst not so when I addressed kind words to thee, saying, I saw thee as a righteous man and perfect in thy generation, and I will bring the flood upon the earth to destroy all flesh. Make an ark for thyself of gopher wood. Thus I spake to thee, telling thee all these circumstances, that thou mightest entreat mercy for the earth. That was what I expected you to do. But thou didst hear that thou wouldst be rescued in the ark. Thou didst, but but thou, as soon as thou didst hear that thou wouldst be rescued in the ark, thou didst not concern thyself about the ruin that would strike the earth. Thou didst but build an ark for thyself, in which thou wast saved. Now that the earth is wasted, thou openest thy mouth to supplicate and pray. Noah realized that he had been guilty of folly. To propitiate God and acknowledge his sin, he brought a sacrifice. God accepted the offering with favor, whence he is called by his name, Noah. The sacrifice was not offered by Noah with his own hands. The priestly service connected with it were performed by his son Shem. There was a reason for this. One day, in the ark, Noah forgot to give his ration to the lion, and the hungry beast struck him so violent a blow with his paw that he was lame forever after. And having a bodily defect, he was not permitted to do the offices of a priest. That's what it says. The sacrifices consisted of an ox, a sheep, a goat, two turtle doves, and two young pigeons. Noah had chosen these kinds because he supposed they were appointed for sacrifices, seeing that God had commanded him to take 7 pairs of them into the ark with him. The altar was erected in the same place on which Adam and Cain and Abel had brought their sacrifices, and on which later the altar was to be in the sanctuary at Jerusalem. After the sacrifice was completed, God blessed Noah and his sons. He made them to be rulers of the world as Adam had been, and he gave them a command saying, "Be fruitful and multiply upon the earth." For during their sojourn in the ark, the two sexes of men and animals alike had lived apart from each other, because while a public calamity rages, continence is becoming, even to those who are left unscathed. This law of conduct had been violated by none in the ark except by Ham, by the dog, and by the raven. They all received the punishment. Ham's was that his descendants were men of dark hued skin. Yeah, they said that. As a token that he would destroy the earth no more, God set his bow in the cloud, even if men should be steeped in sin again. The bow proclaims to them that their sins will cause no harm to the world. Times came in the course of the ages when men were pious enough not to have to live in dread of punishment. In such times, the bow was not visible. God accorded permission to Noah and his descendants to use the flesh of animals for food, which had been forbidden from the time of Adam until then. But they were to abstain from the use of blood. He ordained the seven Noachian laws, the observance of which is incumbent upon all men, not upon Israel alone. God enjoined particularly the command against the shedding of human blood. Whoso would shed a man's blood, his blood would be shed. Even if human Even if human judges let the guilty man go free, his punishment would overtake him. He would die an unnatural death, such as he had inflicted upon his fellow man. Yea, even beasts that slew men, even of them would the life of men be required. The case of drunkenness. Noah lost his epithet, the pious, when he began to occupy himself with the growing of the vine. He became a man of the ground. And this first attempt to produce wine at the same time produced the first to drink to excess, the first to utter curses upon his associates, and the first to introduce slavery. This is the way it all came about. Noah found the vine which Adam had taken with him from paradise when he was driven forth. He tasted the grapes from it, and finding them palatable, he resolved to plant the vine and tend it on the selfsame day on which he planted it. Did I read that right? On the selfsame day on which he planted it, it bore fruit. He put it in the winepress, drew off the juice, drank it, became drunken, and was dishonored, all on one day. His assistant in the work of cultivating the vine was Satan, who had happened along at the very moment when he was engaged in planting the slip he had found. Satan asked him, "What is it thou art planting there?" Noah, "A vineyard." Satan, "And what may be the qualities of what it produces?" Noah, "The fruit it bears is sweet, be it dry or moist. It yields wine that rejoiceth the heart of man." Satan, "Let us go into partnership in this business of planting a vineyard." Noah, "Agreed." Satan thereupon slaughtered a lamb, and then in succession a lion, a pig, and a monkey. The blood of each, as it was killed, he made to flow under the vine. Thus he conveyed to Noah what the qualities of wine are before man drinks of it. Before man drinks of it, he is innocent as a lamb. If he drinks of it moderately, he feels strong as a lion. If he drinks more of it than he can bear, he resembles the pig. And if he drinks to the point of intoxication, then he behaves like a monkey. He dances around, sings, talks obscenely, and knows not what he is doing. This deterred Noah no more than did the example of Adam, whose fall had been due to wine, for the forbidden fruit had been the grape with which he had made himself drunk. In his drunken condition, Noah betook himself to the tent of his wife. His son Ham saw him there, and he told his brothers what he had noticed, and said, "The first man had but 2 sons, and one slew the other. This man Noah has 3 sons, yet he desires to beget a fourth besides." Nor did Ham rest satisfied with these disrespectful words against his father. He added to this sin of irreverence the still greater outrage of attempting to perform an operation upon his father designed to prevent procreation. That's some wacky stuff. When Noah awoke from his wine and became sober, he pronounced a curse upon Ham in the person of his youngest son Canaan. To Ham, to Ham himself he could do no harm, for God had conferred a blessing upon Noah and his 3 sons as they departed from the ark. Therefore he put the curse upon the last born son of the son that had prevented him from begetting a younger son than the 3 he had. The descendants of Ham through Canaan therefore have red eyes, because Ham looked upon the nakedness of his father. They have misshapen lips, because Ham spoke with his lips to his brothers about the unseemly condition of his father. They have twisted curly hair, because Ham turned and twisted his head round to see the nakedness of his father. And they go about naked, because Ham did not cover his nakedness of his father. Thus he was requited, for it is the way of God to mete out punishment, measure for measure. There you have it. Canaan had to suffer vicariously for his father's sin. Yet some of the punishment was inflicted upon him on his own account, for it had been Canaan who had drawn the attention of Ham to Noah's revolting condition. Ham, it appears, was but the worthy father of such a son. The last will and testament of Canaan, addressed to his children, read as follows: "Speak not the truth, hold not yourselves aloof from theft, lead a dissolute life, hate your master with an exceeding great hate, and love one another." As Ham was made to suffer requital for his irreverence, so Shem and Japheth received a reward for the filial deferential way which they took a garment and laid it upon both their shoulders, and walking backward with averted faces, covered the nakedness of their father. They wouldn't embarrass him. Nah, good kids. Naked, the descendants of Ham, the Egyptians and Ethiopians, were led away captive and into exile by the king of Assyria, while the descendants of Shem, the Assyrians, even when the angel of the Lord burnt them in the camp, were not exposed. Their garments remained upon their corpses unsinged. And in time to come, when Gog shall suffer his defeat, God will provide both shrouds and a place of burial for him and all his multitude, the posterity of Japheth. They think of everything. Though Shem and Japheth both showed themselves to be dutiful and deferential, yet it was Shem who deserved the larger meed of praise. He was the first to set about covering his father. Japheth joined him after the good deed had been begun. Therefore, the descendants of Shem received as their special reward the tallit, the garment worn by them, while the Japhethites have only the toga. A further distinction accorded Shem was the mention of his name in connection with God's and the blessing of Noah. "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem," he said. Though as a rule the name of God is not joined to the name of a living person, only to the name of one who has departed this life. The relation of Shem to Japheth was expressed in the blessing their father pronounced upon them. God will grant a land of beauty to Japheth, and his sons will be proselytes dwelling in the academies of Shem. At the same time, Noah conveyed by his words that the Shekinah would dwell only in the first temple erected by Solomon, a son of Shem, and not in the second temple, on the builder of which would be Cyrus. Oh yeah, the Cyrus, a descendant of Japheth. Who knew? Folks, you learn something new every day. Every day, something new. And now for the next thrilling, inestimable, inimitable section. Noah's descendants spread abroad. Uh, it's not like it sounds. Okay. Ah, when it became known to Ham that his father had cursed him, he fled ashamed, and with his family he settled in the city built by him, and named Nelatamawak for his wife. Jealous of his brother, Japheth followed his example. He likewise built a city which he named for his wife Adattaneses. Shem was the only one of the sons of Noah who did not abandon him. In the vicinity of his father's home by the mountain, he built a city to which he also gave his wife's name Zedek Kettlebab. Zedek Kettlebab. The three cities are all near Mount Lubar, the eminence upon which the ark rested. It was on Mount Lubar, folks. That's where it was. The first lies to the south of it, the second to the west, and the third to the east for all you archaeologists out there. Noah endeavored to inculcate the ordinances and the commands known to him upon his children and his children's children. In particular, he admonished them against the fornication, the uncleanness, and all the iniquity which had brought the flood down upon the earth. He reproached them with living apart from one another and with their jealousies, for he feared that after his death they might go so far as to shed human blood. Against this he warned them impressively that they be not annihilated from the earth like those that went before. Another law which he enjoined upon them to observe it was the law ordaining that the fruit of a tree shall not be used in the first 3 years it bears, and even in the fourth year it shall be the portion of the priests alone. After a part thereof has been offered upon the altar of God, and having made an end of giving his teachings and injunctions, Noah said, For thus did Enoch your ancestor exhort his son Methuselah, and Methuselah his son Lamech, and Lamech delivered all unto me, as his father had bidden him. And now I do exhort you, my children, as Enoch exhorted his son when he lived in his generation, which was the seventh generation of man. He commanded it and testified it unto his children and his children's children until the day of his death. In the year 1569 after the creation of the world, Noah divided the earth by lot among his 3 sons in the presence of an angel. Each one stretched forth his hand and took a slip from the bosom of Noah. Shem's slip was inscribed with the middle of the earth, and this portion became his inheritance of his descendants unto all eternity. Noah rejoiced that the lot had assigned it to Shem. Thus was fulfilled his blessing upon him. And God in the habitation of Shem for 3 holy places fell within his precincts. The Holy of Holies in the temple, Mount Sinai, the middle point of the desert, and Mount Zion, the middle point of the navel of the earth. The south fell to the lot of Ham, and to the north became the inheritance of Japheth. The land of Ham is hot, Japheth's cold. But Shem's is neither hot nor cold. Its temperature is hot and cold mixed. This division of the earth took place toward the end of the life of Peleg, the name given to him by his father Eber, who, being a prophet, knew that the division of the earth would take place in the time of his son. The brother of Peleg was called Joktan, because the duration of the life of man was shortened in his time. In turn, the three sons of Noah, while they were still standing in the presence of their father, divided each his portion among his children. That's where it all begins. Noah threatening with his curse any who stretched out his hand to take a portion not assigned to him by lot. And they all cried, "So be it, so be it." Thus were divided 104 lands and 99 islands among 72 nations, each with a language of its own, using 16 different sets of characters for writing. To Japheth were allotted 44 lands, 33 islands, 22 languages, and 5 kinds of writing. Ham received 34 lands, 33 islands, 24 languages, and 5 kinds of writing. And Shem 26 lands, 33 islands, 26 languages, and 6 kinds of writing. One set of written characters more to Shem than to either of his brothers, the extra set being the Hebrew. That's how it happened. The land appointed as the inheritance of the 12 sons of Jacob was provisionally granted to Canaan, Zidon, Heth, the Jebusites, the Amorites, the Girgashites, the Hivites, the Arkites, the Sinites, the Arvadites, the Zimrites, and the Hamathites. It was a duty of these nations to take care of the land until the rightful owners come. No sooner had the children of Noah and their children's children taken possession of the habitations apportioned to them than the unclean spirits began to seduce men and torment them with pain and all sorts of suffering, leading to spiritual and physical death. Upon the entreaties of Noah, God sent down the angel Raphael, who banished 9/10 of the unclean spirits from the earth, leaving but 1/10 for Mastema to punish sinners through them. Raphael, supported by the chief of the unclean spirits, at that time revealed to Noah all the remedies residing in plants, that he might resort to them at need. Noah recorded them in a book, which he transmitted to his son Shem. This is the source to which go back all the medical books whence the wise men of India, Aram, Macedonia, and Egypt draw their knowledge. The sages of India devoted themselves particularly to the study of curative trees and spices. The Arameans were well versed in the knowledge of the properties of grains and seeds, and they translated the old medical books into their language. The wise men of Macedonia were the first to apply medical knowledge practically, while the Egyptians sought to effect cures by means of magic arts and by means of astrology. And they taught the Midrash of the Chaldees, composed by Kangar, the son of Ur, the son of Kesed. Medical skill spread further and further until the time of Asclepius. This Macedonian sage, accompanied by 40 learned magicians, journeyed from country to country until they came to the land of India in the direction of paradise. They hoped there to find some wood of the tree of life, and thus spread their fame abroad over the whole world. Their hope was frustrated. When they arrived at the spot, they found healing trees and wood of the tree of life. But when they were in the act of stretching forth their hands to gather what they desired, lightning darted out of the ever-turning sword, smote them to the ground, and they were all burnt, incinerated. With them disappeared all knowledge of medicine, and it did not revive until the time of the first Artaxerxes, under the Macedonian sage Hippocrates, Dioscorides of Bala, Galen of Caphtor, and the Hebrew Asaph. Okay, folks, here we go again. The depravity of mankind. With the spread of mankind, corruption increased. While Noah was still alive, the descendants of Shem, Ham, and Japheth appointed princes over each of the three groups: Nimrod for the descendants of Ham, Joktan for the descendants of Shem, and Phinehak for the descendants of Japheth. Ten years before Noah's death, the number of those subject to three princes amounted to millions. When this great concourse of men came to Babylonia upon their journeyings, they said to one another, "Behold, the time is coming when at the end of days, neighbor will be separated from neighbor, and brother from brother, and one will carry on war against the other. Go to, let us build us a city and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a great name upon the earth. And now let us make bricks, and each one write his name on upon his brick." Yeah, all agree to this proposal, with the exception of 12 pious men, Abraham among them. They refused to join the others. They were seized by the people and brought before the three princes, to whom they gave the following reason for their refusal: "We will not make bricks, nor remain with you, for we know but one God, and him we serve. Even if you burn us in the fire together with the bricks, we will not walk in your ways." Nimrod and Phinehak flew into such a passion over the 12 men that they resolved to throw them into the fire. Joktan, however, besides being a God-fearing man, was a close kin to the men on trial, and he essayed to save them. He proposed to his two colleagues to grant them a 7 days' respite. His plan was accepted, such deference being paid him as the primate among the three. The 12 were the, the 12 were incarcerated in the house of Joktan. In the night, he charged 50 of his attendants to mount the prisoners upon mules and take them to the mountains. Thus, they would escape the threatened punishment. Joktan provided them with food for a month. He was sure that in the meantime either a change of sentiment would come about and the people desist from their purpose, or God would help the fugitives. 11 of the prisoners assented to the plan with gratitude. Abraham alone rejected it, saying, "Behold, today we flee to the mountains to escape from the fire. But if wild beasts rush out from the mountains and devour us, or if food is lacking so that we die by famine, we shall be found fleeing before the people of the land and dying in our sins. Now, as the Lord liveth, whom I trust, I will not depart." Oh, that's Abraham talking. Hold on. "Now, as the Lord liveth, in whom I trust, I will not depart from this place wherein they have imprisoned me. And if I am to die through my sins, then will I die by the will of God, according to his desire." In vain, Joktan endeavored to persuade Abraham to flee. He persisted in his refusal. He remained behind alone in the prison house, while the other 11 made their escape. At the expiration of the set term, when the people returned and demanded the death of the 12 captives, Joktan could produce only Abraham. His excuse was that the rest had broken loose during the night. The people were about to throw themselves upon Abraham and cast him into the lime kiln. Suddenly, an earthquake was felt. The fire darted from the furnace, and all who were standing round about, 84,000 of the people, were consumed in the flames. 84,000 scorched, burned, incinerated, uh, consumed by the all-devouring lime kiln earthquake fire, while Abraham remained untouched. Thereupon he repaired to his 11 friends in the mountains and told them of the miracle that had befallen him. For his sake, they all returned with him, and unmolested by the people, they gave praise and thanks to God. Nimrod, the first among the leaders of the corrupt men, was Nimrod. His father Cush had married his mother at an advanced age, and Nimrod, the offspring of this belated union, was particularly dear to him as the son of his old age. He gave him the clothes made of skins with which God had furnished Adam and Eve at the time of their leaving paradise. Cush himself had gained possession of them through Ham. From Adam and Eve, they had descended to Enoch, and from him to Methuselah and to Noah, and the last had taken them with him into the ark. You see, back then, clothes, they lasted. Yeah, things were made to last. Yeah, that's like it was in the good old days. Yeah, not like today when the inmates of the ark were about to leave their refuge. Ham stole the garments and kept them concealed, finally passing them on to his firstborn son, Cush. Cush, in turn, hid them for many years. When his son Nimrod reached his 20th year, he gave them to him. These garments had a wonderful property. He, he who wore them was both invincible and irresistible. The beasts and birds of the woods fell down before Nimrod as soon as they caught sight of him, arrayed in them, and he was equally victorious in his combats with men. The source of his unconquerable strength was not known to them. They attributed it to his personal prowess, and therefore they appointed him king over themselves. This was done after a conflict between the descendants of Cush and the descendants of Japheth, from which Nimrod emerged triumphant, having routed the enemy utterly with the assistance of a handful of warriors. He chose Shinar as his capital. Thence he extended his dominion farther and farther until he rose by cunning and force to be the sole ruler of the whole world, the first mortal to hold universal sway. As the ninth ruler to possess the same power will be the Messiah. His impiousness kept pace with his growing power. Since the flood, there had been no such sinner as Nimrod. He fashioned idols of wood and stone and paid worship to them. But not satisfied to lead a godless life himself, he did all he could to tempt his subjects into evil ways, wherein he was aided and abetted by his son Mardon. This son of his outstripped his father in iniquity. It was their time and their life that gave rise to the proverb, out of the wicked cometh forth wickedness. That's logical. The great success that attended Nimrod's undertakings produced a sinister effect. Men no longer trusted in God, but rather in their own prowess and ability, an attitude to which Nimrod tried to convert the whole world. Therefore, people said, since the creation of the world, there has been none like Nimrod, a mighty hunter of men and beasts, and a sinner before God. And not all this sufficed unto Nimrod's evil desire. Not enough that he turned men away from God. He did all he could to make them pay divine honors unto himself. He set himself up as a god and made a seat for himself in the imitation of the seat of God. It was it was a tower built out of a round rock, and on it he placed a throne of cedar wood, upon which arose, one above the other, 4 thrones of iron, copper, silver, and gold. Crowning all, upon the golden throne lay a precious stone, round in shape and gigantic. gigantic in size. This served him as a seat, and, and as he sate upon it, all nations came and paid him divine homage. Ladies and gentlemen, just when you thought that astounding thrills would abate, we have the story of the Tower of Babel. The iniquity and godlessness of Nimrod reached their climax in the building of the Tower of Babel. His counselors had proposed a plan of erecting such a tower. Nimrod had agreed to it, and it was executed in Shinar by a mob of 600,000 men. The enterprise was neither more nor less than rebellion against God. And there were three sorts of rebels among the builders. The first party spoke, "Let us ascend into the heavens and wage warfare with him." The second party spoke, "Let us ascend into the heavens, set up our idols, and pay worship unto them there." And the third party spoke, "Let us ascend unto the heavens and ruin them with our bows and spears." Man, some people, the impudence of that, the it, it boggles the mind. Many, many years were passed in building the tower. It reached so great a height that it took a year to mount to the top. A brick was, therefore, more precious in the sight of the builders than a human being. If a man fell down and met his death, none took notice of it. But if a brick dropped, they wept, because it would take a year to replace it. So intent were they upon accomplishing their purpose that they would not permit a woman to interrupt herself in her work of brickmaking when the hour of travail came upon her. Molding bricks, she gave birth to her child, and tying it round her body in a sheet, she went on molding bricks. Yeah, that's hard right there. God. Whew. Ah, folks, you heard it here first. Ah, they never slackened in their work, and from their dizzy height they constantly shot arrows toward heaven, which returning were seen to be covered with blood. They were thus fortified in their delusion when they cried, "We have slain all who are in heaven." Thereupon God turned to the 70 angels who encompass his throne, and he spake, "Go to, let us go down there and confound their language, that they may not understand one another speech." Thus it happened. Thenceforth none knew what the other spoke. One would ask for the mortar, and the other handed him a brick. In a rage he would throw the brick at his partner and kill him. Many perished in this manner, and the rest were punished according to the nature of their rebellious conduct. Those who had spoken, "Let us ascend into the heaven and set up our idols and pay worship unto them there," God transformed them into apes and phantoms. Those who had proposed to assault the heavens with their arms, God set against each other so that they fell in the combat. And those who had resolved to carry on a combat with God in heaven were scattered broadcast over the earth. As for the unfinished tower, a part sank into the earth, and another part was consumed by fire. Only one third of it remains standing. The place of the tower has never lost its peculiar quality. Whoever passes it forgets all he knows. The punishment inflicted upon the sinful generation of the tower is comparatively lenient. On account of rapine, the generation of the flood were utterly destroyed, while the generation of the tower were preserved in spite of their blasphemies and all their other acts offensive to God. The reason is that God sets a high value upon peace and harmony. Therefore, the generation of the deluge, who gave themselves up to depredation and bore hatred to one another, were extirpated, root and branch, while the generation of the Tower of Babel, dwelling amicably together and loving one another, were spared alive, at least some of them, a remnant of them that didn't kill each other with bricks or get banked or something. Beside the chastisement of sin and sinners by the confounding of speech, another notable circumstance was connected with the descent of God upon earth, one of only 10 such descents to occur between the creation of the world and the day of judgment. It was on this occasion that God and the 70 angels that surround his throne cast lots concerning the various nations. Each angel received a nation, and Israel fell to the lot of God. To every nation a peculiar language was assigned, Hebrew being reserved for Israel. The language made use of by God at the creation of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the amazing, astounding, weird, strange reading cow from another world on a planet reading bedtime stories show thing that this is. Tune in again next time to learn for your edification all the history of the world and all the things that happened, which we have written down here by our friend Louis Ginsberg, who got it from the original source. Hope to see you next time, and until then, goodbye.